Because the pot's already 5.6k pre-flop and now 5k, and we're in a 3-way 3-bet pot. $25.50 lineup. We've got UKU, who won a big tournament a few months ago. Wispa, with a sick name, opens on the button, 2.5, which is the sizing I use as well. Give Me Up makes it 11 blinds to go. And Whisper calls. So Jack 10-9 is a pretty good board for both players. They can both have sets, they can both have straights, they can both have two pairs, they can have open-enders and all that type of good stuff. So I'm expecting a decent amount of aggression by Give Me Up, but not an insane amount. He checks. And Whisper bets quite big, so he's basically saying he's got a really good hand, or maybe a bluff like, you know, Queen 7, Ace Queen. Maybe he bluffs with a hand like Queen 9. Maybe he's got like pocket 4s or something. He's got a strong range. Give Me Up call, so he's got a strong range too. And both guys can definitely improve here on a queen. Give Me Up could also be checking hands like Queen 10, or even, you know, hands like Queen Jack, or he could have check called hands like Ace Queen. So interesting card. Check, check. So it's definitely possible that Wispa had a hand like pocket 9s and he's now scared because of the run out. And he better be scared because now kings and aces get there too. Small bet by Give Me Up. So he's basically saying I've got a set or better. Maybe ace jack. All in. So it's pretty obvious he's got a queen or he's got nothing, right? Even if you check behind a hand like 8-7 on the turn, he's not value shoving that. Wow. Wow, interesting hand. Okay. Give Me Up 3-bet with king queen, which is loose but fine. You sometimes call, sometimes 3-bet that hand. And he checked the flop actually, which is pretty tricky. You know, he knows that in position has a lot of strong hands, so I actually don't mind this play sometimes. Now, I like the 10-8 pre-flop call, but I don't like the flop stab because your hand is just not that good, right? You have a perfect medium strength hand to just be checking behind. And if you're gonna bet because you want to get value from a hand like ace queen or just protect or not get run over, why don't you just go a bit smaller? Why do you have to bet 2/3 pot? So I don't really like that too much. On the turn, I don't mind the check by both guys, but I actually like the river bet size by Give Me Up. You know, he knows that in position can have a lot of queens, so he can't just go crazy, and you know he's also inducing a raise. And then 10-8 bluff shoves all in, saying, you know, I have a queen that I check behind, which is, you know, I guess not the worst, but is definitely an ambitious play. Definitely 10 out of 10 for heart. Their plays, I'll give Me Up an 8.5 out of 10. You know, you saw the button stab very aggressively, so he probably had to read that this guy's pretty aggressive anyway, so he used a smart trap. So actually, I'll give him a 9 out of 10. The button pre-flop is good. The flop I'm not a big fan of. The turn is whatever. And the river 10 out of 10 for heart, but you know, also he has to be careful. So I'll give him a 6.5. I hope this does not offend anybody, the fact that we're playing full ring. But anyway, we've got a couple of people we don't often see. So Calv Poikin, I think is the name. He opens from early position. Here's where things start going a bit off. Hamillion 3-bet's huge, which is kind of a funny play. I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest. And then Tony Hamburg cold calls here. So I'm also not a big fan of that play. The thing is, there's many players behind you who can re-raise or cold call as well now. Your range is kind of defined, right? It's pretty obvious that Tony will have hand like, you know, like ace through jacks, or like ace king or ace queen, maybe like 10-9 suited. I mean, hey, maybe he has 5-3 offsuit. That's possible too, right? But it's pretty obvious what he has, I would say. And now he lets Calv in the pot with a hand like pocket 4s, and you know, gives him a good price to set mine. And then if Calv doesn't hit, he's gonna fold anyway. And then when he hits, you know, your pocket jacks aren't looking so good. But who knows? He can have anything. So this is one of the issues with cold calling here, because I mean, you've basically said I don't have aces and kings, probably not queens, right? But I've got a decent hand. So Calva's got a pretty good bluff spot here because he knows that Tony's never really, really strong. He does have to worry about Hamillion, who can have all the good hands. But Hamillion is going to play he's going to be fairly honest here. I doubt he just ships it in with like the ace-5 suited. Okay, this is a very funny hand already. We should have invited Tim Stone on stream so he can explain what's going on. Because the pot's already 5.6k pre-flop, I know 5k, and we're in a three-way 3-bet pot. So 10, 6, 4. I guess Hamillion could have pocket 10s. I guess Tony could have pocket 10s. Calv, probably not. He likely just calls pre-flop. Unless he thinks the other guys are way out of line. But I'd say Tony and Hamillion are more likely to have pocket 10s. 6s and 4s, probably not. Hands like 8, 7 suited, perhaps. And then obviously over pairs. And hands like ace, king, and 8, king, queen suited, etc. Check by Calv. It's actually a pretty good spot to slow play a hand like aces. Check, check, check. And the 3 really never changes anything, right? Nobody really has a straight or 2 pair here or a set, so if, let's say, pocket queens were good on the flop, they're certainly good now. Calv could have had pocket 3s had he called the 3-bet, but he didn't, right? He 4-bet. So Hamillion goes for the small bet. He's basically saying, I've got a hand that's good enough to bet for value once he gets some protection. You know, and I'm trying to get you guys to call with a hand like 9s, for instance, or a hand like a flush draw. Tony calls, kind of a funky line so far. And so this 6, let's let him shove. So this 6 doesn't really matter, right? I mean, I guess Tony could have a hand like 6, 7 suited or 6, 5 suited, but I guess Hamillion could have the same hand, but we're really reaching here. It's more likely that they have a pair, as in a pocket pair. Tony calls. Ooh. All right, so interesting hand. So Hamillion 3-bet against Calv, which I think is fine. Tony cold called with the ace-4 suited, which is too loose because, I mean, he's losing to hands like ace-5, ace-king, ace-queen, etc. Big pairs. So I would have just folded there. I think cold 4-betting is also too loose. And then once Calv 4-bets, I think the call by Hamillion is alright. But I would just fold with the ace-4. I mean, Calv could be 4-betting with hands like ace-king, ace-queen, and he just so dominated. And then Hamillion decides to bet twice, you know, with not much behind. And I like it. I think it's a good value bet. And you could definitely lose, but I think you're ahead often enough when your opponent only has to call so little. And then Tony called down, probably thinking, well, I block aces, block hands like king, queen, that might be bluffing, but it's just quite loose, right? So how do we rate Calv's play? We don't really know what happened. We don't really know what he had. He likely had a hand like ace, king. So he played his hand fine. Hamillion's play was fine. I'll give him a 6.5 out of 10, and I'll give Tony a 3.5. I'm sorry, Tony. I've seen you make good plays before, but this is not a good play, in my opinion. 25.56 max again. Give me up folds. As does Bolek. John McLean makes it 225x, and UKU flats here on the button. So he's probably saying I've got like a decent hand, like for instance like 4s or 5s or king 10 suited. Maybe he's flatting wider because of the lineup in the big blind, or maybe he's just playing a standard range. Who knows? He's also a bit deeper with both the blinds, so having a speculative hand like ace-4 suited is a bit better when you're deep than at, let's say, 40 big blinds. Mexican also defends. 4-way to the flop. I mean, everybody could conceivably have every set other than pocket queens, obviously. Only John McLean can have that. I guess it's possible that UKU flats queens on the button once in a lifetime, but unless he believes that the blinds are completely out of line, I don't think he'll flat queens. Check by John McLean. And a small bet by UKU, just betting for protection and value. Whisper check raises, which is also fine, representing a good queen or better, but definitely not always. And he can definitely have 6s and 3s here, right? Queen 6, Queen 3, 6, 3 shouldn't be in his range, but who knows? And the 5 doesn't really change that much. I mean, 7-4 shouldn't be in either person's range. Doesn't mean it isn't. 4 deuce, same thing. Pocket 5s, I guess, could be in... I mean, does UKU really stab 5s 4 away and call a check raise by somebody who check raised with 2 people behind? Probably not, right? But who knows? 6-5 suited is possible. River 5, which, you know, pairs the board. That's definitely relevant in the sense that both guys could have improved to a full house. And Whisper bets 2400, which seems fine, and calls an all-in. Wow. All right, so UKU flats a button with 6s versus a cutoff, which seems fine. Whisper flat 7-4 suited, which is definitely too loose, right? I mean, squeezing is way too loose, calling is too loose, you just gotta fold. And then he check raises the flop, which is, you know, pretty aggressive and crazy, but it's okay. And then somehow he bings the magic card and he, you know, he bets and bets again and calls a raise. I mean, he's gotta put UKU in a hand like pocket 4s or 3, like ace 3 or something like a queen that's bluffing in order to make this call, because UKU so credibly reps pocket 6s especially and pocket 3s. So yeah, he's got to put him on a bluff like queen 10, for instance, right? Or like maybe like pocket 7s or something. So I think UKU's play is very basic but good, so I'll give him a 9 out of 10. I'll give Whisper, I'll give him a 5 out of 10. The pre-flop calls are questionable, the check raise is, you know, aggressive, but, you know, whatever. And then, I mean, he bangs the turn, and the river is not the worst play in the world if he thinks that UKU is a capable player, which he is. So, yeah, definitely a fun hand. Definitely a fun one.